It's Pete Camilleri from the Voodoo Room podcast. Hello everybody, welcome to my podcast. I love you all, I love you, I love Howard. Okay, the next one we're doing is with Mr. Ross Wilson. And Ross and I got together on a Zoom podcast and he shared some beautiful insights about his career path, and I hope you like it. Don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button. It's all below there. You know what to do. Share it. See ya.
Oh, baby, don't you know that I love you so? Baby, don't you know that I love you so? Baby, don't you know I love you so? Oh, my darling, can't you see?
When you were producing for another artist like Skyhooks or Jojo Zep and the Falcons, do you feel the same connection to the music you make compared to when you're producing your own material? How is the relationship with the music different, or is it the same?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't do much production anymore because it does come with certain things. First, I have to really like the act and the music. And that's how I got involved with Skyhooks. You know, I hadn't really produced an album before that. I'd done a couple of little tiny things. But I'd been in the studio, so I knew what to do. But I was just so enthused about what they were up to and the songs. And I had signed Greg McCain to a publishing deal, so I was trying to find ways to get those songs done. Finally, we got permission to do an album and backing from Mushroom Records. So I went in there. We'd done a lot of pre-production. So things like that, this is an answer to your question. Pre-production is very important, and knowledge of the songs, and I had a few ideas of my own. I knew as a producer you're just trying to extract the best performance, and back in those days we didn't have drum machines or anything like that, so it's all live, you know, so you got to get the best performance you can and then you build on that. And we had a great relationship over particularly the first two albums. I did 3 albums with Skyhooks. The first 2 albums were fantastic, and it was such a creative environment. You know, I was letting them do what they wanted to do, helping them get it sounding great with the help of engineer John French, and then adding a few production things I came up with, you know, like marimbas and just things I heard in my head that I thought would help the songs. And we came out with something the first 2 albums are great. They're really good. And there's still no band that sounds like Skyhooks. So I think that was a really good example of... So getting back to your question, it's sometimes harder with your own thing. And that's why you get producers, because they can help you have some kind of objective thing, stand outside, you know. I've gotten better over the years of being able to stand outside of myself and look in. But for instance, doing my own music, quite often I'll record something and then I've found it's good to go and just leave it there for a while and then record something else. And you go, oh, gee, I don't know about that track. And then you go back and listen to it and you go, hey, that's not bad. Because you can be so into it that all you hear is flaws, you know. And then you go, you know, I'm glad I waited, and now I'm going to do this to it and make it better, you know, blah, 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 blah. So that's normally how I work. It's like do some stuff, leave it for a little bit,
Come back to it.
Listen, go do something else, come back, finish it off. It's a process, you know. You do have to extract yourself from it. Otherwise, all you're hearing is like the bad you and not the good you, you know.
I mean, that Living in the 70s album, it's, like you said, nothing sounds anything like it. It's quite an amazing achievement for an Australian act to have so uniqueness to the sound.
It was a groundbreaking album in a lot of ways, but there's nobody that sounds like them. The bass playing is not normal. The drummer does all kinds of crazy stuff. The guitar work, interplay between bongo and red is like, it doesn't sound like other people, I can't think of another band in the whole world that sounds like Skyhooks. And they had a particular quality identity. And then I don't listen to Skyhooks albums all the time, so I hadn't listened for like quite a few years. Then Spotify started happening. I thought, I'll go and have a listen, see if they sound all right on Spotify. So I'm going, they sound a bit compressed and stuff. But then the second album came on, I'm going, whoa. So I hadn't remembered how a step up, the second album was like a real step up production-wise, and it's just like, ooh, it's bigger sound. And there's a couple of extraordinary tracks on there. And my favourite of the singles that I did with them is Ego's Not a Dirty Word. It's like 3 minutes 15 or something, and it's just no fat. It's all, everything, it's just, see, when I'm making a record, what I like a track, I like to have a progression of ideas, right? So you got an intro that catches your ear. Well, they come up with da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Who else does that? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like triple kind of thing. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ding. It's like all of those things catch your ear. You go da-da-da-da-da. What's that? Da-da. The riff comes in and you got a ding. And then the singing starts. So you've already had like three great things that make you go, Yeah. So I love that track. It's great.
It's great. You're definitely correct. But then you sort of went on to having your own productions, Oz Records. Was that your record company or?
It was a thing that I did with Glenn Wheatley.
Okay.
And I had done Daddy Cool, and then I did produce Skyhooks. And somewhere along the way, I ended up at a Suzi Quattro concert at Festival Hall. And after it, we're milling around, and Glenn Wheatley's there, and he just got back from England. And I knew him because he'd been in the Master's Apprentices and all that while I was in Party Machine and milling, we knew each other. But he'd been away and he'd picked up all this kind of knowledge and publishing and blah, 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 and he was now managing Little River Band. He said, we should start a record company together. And I went, oh, yeah, okay. So I thought, we could maybe make a few waves. And he got backing from EMI. But I found out after a while that, yes, I had done Skyhooks and I was, really happy with that, and it was a great experience. And then I started doing Joe Josette and a few other people, and it was harder.
Why is that?
Because I'm not totally, I had to be totally into it,
Yeah.
And I was into Joe Josette because of the very first album was another of my publishing kind of discovery guys who I'd known from Daddy Cool days, Wayne Burt, right? And he actually played with Daddy Cool for a while. But he's a great songwriter. And so I was looking after him as well. So on the very first Joe Josette album, Joe O'Leary, I think, maybe wrote one thing, an instrumental, and all the rest of the songs were
Wayne's.
either Wayne's. All the originals were Wayne's. And they even shared vocal duties, And then Joe got the writing bug, good on him. And so the second album was kind of a bit of a mixture, a bit of Wayne's, a bit of this, a bit of that, a few covers that are, that became Joe Camilleri standards, actually. Like I got him to do the reggae song, I'm in a dance.
Great song.
Yeah. And that kind of, around that time, got him into reggae and, he took it from there. But there was the relationship was becoming a bit fraught because, being a creative sort of guy, he was like trying to get out of his cage and, do his thing, And so they ended up leaving Oz Records, and it was like, oh, well, So around that time, I'm kind of getting disillusioned with the whole process and thinking, I don't know about this. And I released a few of my own things too, and the very first Mondo rock album, because Mondo rock album, I was going, I got to get back on the road. I was sitting in a room trying to hustle and just, recording other people is a bit of a drag. So at least I learned my lesson, let's put it that way. And Glenn Wheatley, being the hustler he has, managed to offload it all to EMI. They took over our debts and all of that. So, it was a kind of a not an unhappy ending, let's put it that way. And Little River Band were taking up by then. So half the time I was sitting there alone because he's going, I've got to go to America because that Little River Band are going through the roof, and, and I'm going, oh, damn this, So that had a contributing factor as well. So there you go, folks. You got to do the things that your heart's into.
That's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My second question is, from the boom times of the 70s and 80s to today, is it easy to focus on how things may not be as good as what they used to be? So let's go the other way. What are you most optimistic about when it comes to the future of Australian music?
Well, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about. I mean, you've got like number one acts around the world, Kid Leroy, those are from Australia. You got people like Sia, who wrote songs for everybody and like probably is a multi-zillionaire by now, And she came from Adelaide. She was the daughter of a guy I know.
Yeah.
Little Sia, who become Big Sia, It's like incredible. So it's all about really, now look, this is a question, like you're asking me this question, what is there to be optimistic about?
Yeah.
And I get asked by kids, there was no music schools around in that when me and Joe started out, right? We just did it by doing it. We were rough and we hardly knew anything, but we just kept on persevering, until we got better. Now you've got VCAs and all of this, churning out really accomplished people. I mean, my daughter went to VCA. She did a film thing there. She knows all these music kids that go there and they form bands and they're sounding great,
Yeah.
And they know how to produce and do all this stuff. But they come and go, well, how do I get into, business and make it work for me? And the thing I always start out with is like, first have some talent. It's not enough just to make like good noises. You have to be able to kind of create and have the ability to know what the essence of something is and turn it into something that, you're an entertainer that people will be entertained by, right? That all those people who can't do what you do will want to be with you. Now, it's very hard to define what that is, right? And yet people like, Joe and myself, because we've tread the boards for so long, we can just go and walk on a stage and everyone will go, of course, there's some expectation because they're there to hopefully see you, but then you might go on a festival or something, you might be a whole lot of people that don't know you, but you better be able to kind of walk there on that stage and have the people go and grab them from the first song and then keep them there and get their attention and keep it there. Now, that's really hard to explain what that is and how to do it. But there is a certain thing about stagecraft. But
that's experience, That's just
experience, but it's also having the confidence of the people that are with you. Like, you've got a band. You know that band will pick up on your cues, right? You don't have to double think it. So you go out there and you know that they're going to be with you all the way, and that lifts it to another level. So the other thing I say to people about young guys is like, first have some talent and then work with other good people. Because music is all about, like, there's very few people who do it completely alone, You need other people, even if you're just working in a studio and stuff, Even if you're a guy like Tame Impala, that guy, he just does it all on his laptop and makes this incredible music, still needs a band when he goes on the road, and he hires these guys and they play his stuff. So that's kind of what it's about, It's like having that interplay with people, because that means every time you perform, it's a bit different. It's not the same every time. I might sing Cool World. I go, cool world, cool world, cool, cool, cool. I don't sing it the same every time. I'm constantly going, tweak here, tweak there. How's the band sounding? Or I respond to something that's going on in the band. I go, wow, that's a bit different tonight. Oh, that sounds good. Or the band's really nailing it tonight. And they go, boom, you lift up to the next level and you're there, So it's the same with like playing Eagle Rock for the last 50 years. Very difficult to get that song right. The guys that made Eagle Rock sound really great were Gary, Wayne, Hannah and me, 4 people in a room. And basically what you hear on that record is just that there's one overdub, one little guitar overdub. I know what it is. You can barely hear it. And then we did the vocals, of course. But the band track is just 4 guys in a room. Nothing else.
That's it.
There's hardly any reverb on it. It's like just grinding guitars, people whacking drums. And
Where did you record that song?
The original Armstrong studio.
Where was that?
What's the original? The original Armstrong studio, I think, was where Mimo Music Hall is.
Oh,
now.
right. Was that a recording studio?
Yeah, Bill Armstrong used to record there. I only found this out in recent times, but that's where Norm Road recorded, Ain't Necessarily So. And things like that, things on the Go label as well, like Bobby and Laurie and things like that. And then they moved to this single-story terrace on Albert Road, just near Robert Park Lake as it swings around, and they gutted it out. And so you walk in and there was a couple of little offices in the front room where Johnny Hawker and arrangers and stuff would be working out things for like ads and records they were working on and stuff. And you go in and then the next half of it was just this big long room, and it had the booth at the end with the glass window and all that, control room. And the rest of it was all set up. So you just walk in there, and I'd already been there and done a couple of things, one single with the party machine, and then Sons of Ezra Mother cut a couple of things for an art show that we did there. So I was familiar with the room, So we just walk in there, and it's like we'd done this deal, and Robbie Porter's going to produce, and all of that, and we're all totally comfortable with being just get behind the drums, and it's all set to go. And it was on an 8-track machine.
Yeah, right.
That was all they had at the time. When we went back to do the second Daddy Cool album, they progressed to 16. But the 8-track seemed to work really well, and they had a very good method. Because they were recording all the hit singles that were coming out of Melbourne at the time, Twilights and Russell Morris, everybody was recording there, and they had Roger Savage as the engineer, an English guy who was very instrumental in putting Melbourne on the map, with musically. He'd come, and he had as his assistant Ern Rose, who then became, a master himself. And so they had this method where on the record, the bass drum and the bass are on one track. They had it set up so it sounds great. It's like, I'm not sure how you do that. And then we would have to bounce down backing vocals onto, they had this thing of bouncing down the tracks and things like that. So it was a whole method they had, like bass and bass drum on one track, guitar here, guitar there.
But how established were the musicians before you even got into the studio, into that scenario? I mean, they wouldn't have been mugs. They would have been at a certain level already. So they were giving the studio, the engineer, the sound. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, Gary and Wayne had recorded there a lot of times. They used to play with Bobby and Laurie and played on their hits and all that. So they were more familiar with the place than I was even. So, Gary's really great as a recording drummer. He's played on so many records, and he played on other records of mine as well. He's fabulous, he plays the song. That's the difference between him and a bunch of other drummers, because he's a songwriter himself, so he hears the song. And if you notice Daddy Cool, we all sang as well. We all sang all the time, all 4 of us. So he was totally there, and so it was just a matter of them then capturing us doing that, which they managed to do. Eagle Rock, on the first album, we did a lot of things in 1 or 2 takes. Daddy Cool was very good at doing things in 1 or 2 takes, and particularly Wayne on the bass, get him doing his boom, 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 You go, nah, man, that's great. We don't need anything else, you know. Hannaford, very intuitive. So it was a great band, you know. But getting back to, Eagle Rock, I still sometimes have to tell my band, you know, the Peacenecks, I go back up and listen to the record because you're getting off track here.
Yeah.
You know, it's a particular kind of glue there between the boom, ba-doodly, and dan-lang, dan-dan-da-da. Basses go boom, 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 boom. Even bass, it's as simple as bass line, you know, and yet for some reason sometimes guys can't sit it in the right place, and I'm going, oh man, it's not right, you know. And when it's right, it's just fantastic. And the guys that have got it most right that I've done over the years was I used to go to the Tamworth Music Festival every now and again and play with a friend of mine up there, Laurie Minson, we get a couple of gigs here, and we play with some of the country players who I knew quite well because they also played in other things as well. Chris Hagan was a bass player and great guitarist as well. And the late Glenn Hanna on guitar, you know, and Laurie Miss. They play Eagle Rock, and because they understand guitars and stuff so well, and country players are ensemble players, that's the other thing. They're not grandstanders, you know. Country music, very ensemble work. I play it with them, I go,
there it is.
It's right.
Yeah.
It sounds right. It feels right.
Yeah. It's a generation. It's a generational thing too, I would imagine.
Well, a bit, but it's more just the ensemble work. They'd hear the guitar parts, they'd hear the Hannaford part, they'd hear my part. You know, I'd still play the main riff, but they just get into that. They understood how it worked. They understand how it worked, and that was quite an insight. Because see, Gary Young, he's very much into like country
rockabilly,
rock, blues, and all the rootsy kind of stuff, you know. So that's how that worked there. So I was very lucky to have those guys make my song into the Daddy Cool song that still people can't play right.
Do you remember where you were and what it felt like to learn you were going to be inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame? And did it feel any different being inducted as an individual in 1989 compared to a member of Daddy Cool in 2006?
Well, it sure did feel different, and there's a very good reason for that. I was managed by a guy who's not with us anymore. He's passed away, called Gary Rabin, and we were very good friends for quite a long time. And he was managing me, particularly he managed Mondo Rock for a while, and then when I went solo, he was managing me solo-wise. So getting inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame is kind of like, it's great, but it's also got vested interests. You know, you usually have to be on an ARIA label. You do. Otherwise, they're not putting in the ARIA Hall of Fame. So it's the big record companies and it's helping promote their artists and stuff. So Gary concocted this idea, unbeknownst to me, that I was going to be inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame. And I fucking hate surprises, right? So I'm there, and this is when they only they'd have the ARIA Awards it's 1989, and they only induct like one or two people in every year at that time, right? So you have the normal awards, and then they have the Fame Awards. And they go, oh, Dame Nellie Melba is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Whole story about Dame Nellie Melba. Yeah. I go, well, that's great because I love Dame Nellie Melba. I've read her autobiography. I'm thinking about all this. And they start reading out. Now, next inductee is a guy and they start reading out all this stuff. And they go, fuck, that's me. You know, they start saying all this stuff. And I'm going, like turning white, going, what the fuck? And then they go, okay, come up and get your award. And I go, you fucking cunt, what have you done? Oh, yeah, I thought it'd be a nice surprise, right? And I get up there and I'm like, blah, 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 you know, like, and I was signed, I forget, I signed to somebody at the time. So I'm going, oh, yeah, it's great. And I'm going to make a new record soon, blah, 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 blah. I'm going, get me out of here, you know. So it completely blindsided me. Whereas the second time, which was later, you know, in mid-2000s or something, with Daddy Cool. And Daddy Cool had done we'd done a third album, like stitched together from some things that are in the vault and a whole lot of new tracks. So there was a bit of an agenda there, you know. So and it was about time we'd been inducted. So we got inducted into the Hall of Fame and we played blah, blah, blah. And it was all really good fun, So it was completely different. And also I had a sort of feeling also, it's when you're in a band, it's like you're a bit of a kind of
gang.
You support each other. You're a bit of a gang, and you've got your own little jokes and everything about you that kind of sits together. So, and I felt, really great that Daddy Cool was getting inducted, not just for me, but for the other people in the band, So we did that, and that was in Melbourne at the Regional Plaza or wherever it was, that building. So they're completely two different times. Now, I'm hoping that Mondo Rock might get inducted one day, and then I'd have triple. It might be the only.
Well, they should.
Triple.
They should.
But maybe we will now. We've kind of got our catalogue going through Liberation Bloodlines. There's something there that maybe they can get us in. If we ever get out of COVID, maybe next year.
That's it. When you were a teenager, you were involved in quite a serious car accident. Often what happens during our teenage years continues to inform how we make our way through the rest of our lives. So what do you remember about that event, and what effects do you think it had on the rest of your life and music?
Well, what happened to me was I was sort of hanging out with this surf crowd, and I had a surfboard. I was never any good at surfing, but I loved the whole thing of surfing, and I loved the ocean, but I was never any good at it, And somebody had borrowed my surfboard, and that was down at Torquay. And they said, so-and-so's left your board down there. I forget what happened. But I had to go down to Torquay to get my board back, hitchhiking, because everyone hitchhiked in those days. You don't do it as much anymore. For some reason, people think it's dangerous. But, Anyway, so I got in up early in the morning, unknown to my folks, and hit the road and got my first ride down. I lived near the beach, and I lived down Beach Road, and got as far as Docklands, where Docklands is now, where the Mission of Seamen building is. And the guy said, this is it, I've got to get out here. You can get out here. And, and I went, that's cool, we're nearly on the road to Torquay. So I got out of the car, and I didn't look properly, and I was running across the road to get, and this car, and I remember seeing the car coming and going, fuck, this is not going to work, thinking, oh, well, I'm going to be hit, So I got thrown up in the air and banged down on the ground. Next thing, these wharfies are coming over and going, oh, you're all right, mate, And I'm going, I look down and my legs going, like my jeans are splitting. I'm thinking, I think I'm in trouble here. So I get carted up to hospital, I've got a broken leg. So what happened was, the effect of that whole experience was I was in Prince Henry's Hospital on St Kilda Road. It's not there anymore. All of the school holidays, summer holidays, and listening to the radio, sitting hearing the Beatles, and reading about this new group, the Rolling Stones. Oh, gee, they look wild, and all those things. And there was a lot of harmonicas and stuff in pop music. It was coming back in. The Beatles had it, and a few others. And so when I got out and I'm recuperating at home, I still had my leg in a caliper and I wasn't back at school yet. I said, hey, Dad, could you get me a harmonica? Because he worked in the city. So he bought me a C Hona thing, and I started copying stuff off records, just by ear, and picked stuff up pretty quickly, So by the time I got back to school, I was actually blowing a bit of harp, and there was a bit of a scene going at the school, and that's how I ended up in my first band, because I was playing at a jam with Keith Glass's band. They were playing Rolling Stones songs off the first album, King Bee and things like that. So I'm blowing away on King Bee at this little dance in Brighton, and the other band that had been on playing instrumentals came up to me and said, hey, can you sing? So what happened was I broke my leg, but it changed my direction completely, because only one of my surfing friends came to visit me in hospital, but my musical friends, who were into kind of jazz and rock and whatever was going on at the time, they came in and visited me and bought me magazines and shit. So I didn't really think about it at the time, but later I was thinking, I gravitated to the music side of things and away from the surfing guys, because one of the surfing guys, while I was in hospital, he freaking well sold my wetsuit, He had a grudge against me. I eventually got my board back, but he'd sold this certain. I knew why, because we had a spat at one time. And I went, man, this is
No good.
But these guys are, I'm having fun over here.
Yeah.
So I'm blowing up, and I got him the first band, and quickly took over. Hey, why don't we play some Sleepy John Estes songs, John Lee Hooker and that. Going, yeah, okay. So suddenly I'm singing in front of this little band and playing, a few local dancers, getting better on the harp, singing all the time, so I'm getting better at that. And so that was one effect of getting a broken leg. But one of the biggest effects was I was then eligible for the call-up, for the war, Vietnam War, like conscripting people, young people, our brightest young people, to being shot at and stuff, And a lot of fun. My friends got called up and it ruined their lives, basically.
For sure.
For sure. And my number came out. I'm going, oh, no, come on, report to this thing. I'm 19 years old. Report to this place for a medical. I'm thinking, I bet they've probably got a special place. I was a clerk at the time, working for the Department of Supply. I bet you they've got a special office full of guys with bung legs, who can do clerical work, Okay. So they go along and they go, my leg doesn't work very properly, because it still doesn't bend properly. It goes to 90 degrees and that's about it. And my knee was stuffed, So they're pushing and going, oh, well, yeah, hey, mate, it's not official for a couple of weeks. You'll get a letter, but, we don't need you. You'll be right.
So that was very fortunate.
I didn't drink much in those days. I went straight down the pub and had a beer. It was like, So, and then, lo and behold, I'm still playing, started to write songs. I'm in the party machine with Ross Hannaford and Mike Rudd, We've got a few things are happening and that. And then I left my job. We became pro, and I was enjoying that. I could sleep in and watch the midday movie and go do gigs and made a record, we made a single. And then I was around about 21 and everything. We went out on a tour and got ripped off completely. So all that gear got stolen. We didn't get paid. Everywhere we went, it was a total, the naive young band that the sharks just saw us and went, So we got back to Melbourne with our tails between our legs, and I received a phone call from Brian Peacock from the band Procession, who we knew. I didn't know them all that well personally, but I knew of them and I respected what they did and all that. They'd gone off to England to try to make it there, as everybody did in those days, wanted to go, Aussie bands wanted to go to England, a bit like the Beatles or the Stones or whatever. He goes, oh, we've had a line-up change, we wouldn't mind having a front man, I said, oh, what about, you got a singer already? I know you just play more guitar. So it's Mick Rogers, And I heard some of your songs, we really like what you're doing. So I'd received, when I turned 21, like $2,000 or something in TAC money, because I'd had this car accident. They kept it in trust until I was 21. So I got this $2,000, which is, those days, a fair bit of money. I go, okay, I'll do that. It just came out of the blue, and I told the band, I told the party machine, they were kind of a bit, oh, yeah. And he goes, I don't mind, I'll go back to art school. That's what he wanted to do anyway, Mike Rudd goes, oh, okay, guess I'll have to find something else to do. So I go off to England. He forms Spectrum, starts writing songs. He'd only ever written about one or two things till then, and he starts writing this real serious music. I didn't find out until I got back. That's what happened, I go off to England. So, one, I took up the harmonica, kept me out of the army, got some money, went to England, which changed my life, right? Away from Australia, looking back, going, as everybody has to do, gee, Australia's just a small place. The world's a big place, and there's a lot going on, and, man, I'm loving it, I had some incredible experiences, including coming back with no money, with my new bride, over Europe, through the Middle East, all those places you can't go anymore, India, Malaysia, Penang.
So how old were you when you came back to Melbourne?
22 and a half, something like that. Got back to Melbourne about 9 months after I left. So, I mean, with the Procession, we played the Marquee and the Revolution Club, and a few things were happening, but nothing panned out. They were kind of, I'd come in and they were, falling apart, and it didn't. But I had just loved my time there. It was great. And, and started thinking about, got the distance from where I was about what the kind of music I wanted to play,
Yeah. You would have been experiencing and hearing things in Europe way before Australia would have been privy to.
Well, the other thing that I found out was, Australian bands had all wanted to go to England. They win the Battle of the Bands or something and go off to England and come back, maybe successful or not. I don't know. Nothing much seemed to happen. When I was in England, I realised all the English bands, even the new ones, like we played with King Crimson, we're going, wow, this band's incredible, and then there's other guys that go, have you heard this new band, Free? They're awesome. I'm going, oh, yeah, they're pretty good too, and so they're all new bands. All they want to do is go to America, because that's where it's at. That's where the money is. And America wanted English bands too, so they're all going, Led Zeppelin had just formed. One of the last gigs we did was on this student cruise from London to New York and back with all these students that had been in Europe for a year or the summertime. That was great. It was all a wild trip, And someone had bought the Led Zeppelin album. They're playing Led Zeppelin. I'm going, oh, wow, everyone's wanting to go to America. So I came back from Australia going, I've been to England now. Gee, it'd be great to go to America, And that was one of the things that convinced us to sign to Robbie Porter's label, Sparmac, because he just bought into the label. And I knew the other guy that owned it, John Mac, the Mac part of it. John McDonald ran the disc shop where I used to get all my import records and things, right? So we had a bit of a rapport, and he had his eye on what was going around in Melbourne because all the musicians used to go there to buy their records. He goes to Porter, you got to come see this band, they're going nuts, So they come and see us in full flight at Melbourne Town Hall. We'd sold out Melbourne Town Hall. We didn't even have a record out, That's how hot the buzz was. And people are going conga lines out into the street. I'm not kidding. It's like people were making these impromptu conga lines, go out into the foyer, down into Swansea Street, back in there. I literally saw a guy hanging off the balcony going, I hope he doesn't fall. We're grooving away. Everyone's having a great time. Porter's going, fuck, I better sign these guys. So their pitch was, I live in the States half the time and I want to mix it there. I know there's people to mix it with and everything and producing and that, and we want to get you to the States. And I'm immediately going, well, that's where I want to be. So that was their pitch, and that's helped us. Because I already had a bad experience with like EMI with the Party Machine. We did one single and then they didn't even send us any royalties, or maybe they did, maybe a manager got it, I don't know. But it was like nothing happened and you never got any response and stuff. So I was going, okay, let's do this. So that's how we ended up on that label and with Robbie Porter producing us. So I got to say, he was the right guy to do the production job, the wrong guy to co-manage us in America.
So did Daddy Cool actually go to America?
Yeah, we did. So we hadn't even been... In fact, around August the 8th, I think it was, we were booked to play a couple of nights at the Whiskey A Go-Go in LA as a way of pitching us to the record companies there, showcase kind of thing. So the other guy who was looking after us it was Bon Binder's, it was Porter's partner, was this guy Steve Binder, who was a big wig in showbiz there because he was mainly a TV and film director sort of guy, and he's still around, I think. He'd done the Elvis comeback special in the boxing ring, leather-coated Elvis was back, and he'd done this thing called the TAMI thing with all James Brown, the Rolling Stones. It was it wasn't made, everything that's made for TV now, but this was made and shown at cinemas, and it was all the hip acts at the time, really good movie actually. So he's very good. His whole thing was like, get it live, and make it exciting. So he had talked us up around town, and so they'd done all this stuff around town, which is a bit overhyped, but I kind of understand why they did it because they had to get everyone's attention, but we weren't kind of used to that, so it freaked us out a bit. So we played the Whiskey A Go-Go. I think it was like only about the our single was number one in Australia at the time, and so we were really hot, to go over there. And the album, I don't think it even come out in Australia. No, it hadn't. It didn't come out till the late August. So they were living up to their promise. They got us over there, And we didn't play that well. We were a bit freaked out on the night, and which was the first time I've ever been freaked out with Daddy Cool, And we came to our second set. I said, "Oh, guys, that was shit out. So let's go back and just do what we do." So second set was better, and I think the guy from Warner Reprise might have arrived later and stuck around with the second set, and they decided to sign it, because album wasn't out in Australia, but we already had it in the can, right? So they had a whole thing, and they had a number one. They could hype the fact that we were number one elsewhere, even though everyone goes like, Australia, you're from Australia. Like no one of them had been there from Australia before to make any noise, except maybe the Easy Beats they had a hit, but I'm not sure if they toured. So we went there, we came back, we had number one album here, and then we went straight back and did another tour, Yeah,
Plane, okay, yeah. Because it would have been pretty expensive back then to fly.
Well, Port had some kind of a deal with Pan Am, but yeah, we soaked up a lot of our money, We didn't reinvest.
So you didn't go to New York?
We did eventually.
Yeah.
Second tour, we opened at the Madison Square Gardens with Deep Purple and Fleetwood Mac, at the bottom of the bill. That tour should have been great, and we went over great.
So what were the PAs like back then?
Well, they weren't big like they are now.
Yeah.
But they were,
They were adequate.
They were what they were. I remember Daddy Cool playing at My Music Bowl with a McLean's 2-column PA. It's in fact, in the fold-out cover, you can see it. He's doing that, because that's all there was. And then and people loved it because that's all they were used to. But then from that moment on, we were on the cusp of the explosion, From that moment on, like, PAs got bigger because of Woodstock, really, and outdoor festivals. They were starting to build big PAs. And then when you got Sunbury's trying to emulate that, or the first big one we did was My Ponga in South Australia, and they laid their hands on every bin they could possibly find in town, to make something that could be heard down there.
So how did you find performing? Like, was it difficult to perform without any... No? Okay.
No. The thing that went wrong on the second tour was it was mainly label-made... Like, labels would put on tours, right? And they'd have... So Deep Purple and Fleetwood Mac, which was the pre-Stevie Nicks Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah. Peter Green.
But had Fleet and Mac in it.
Yeah.
And Christine, they had different guitarists, and they didn't impress me all that much, They were in between the Peter Green and the other one, so it was like a bit ho-hum. The thing that stuffed it up was that Ian Gillan, the singer from Deep Purple, got glandular fever. So we got 4 gigs into the tour, and it was like, oh, next you're going to so and second of all our money, by the way, flying around the joint. And you get there and it's going, it's not on because we couldn't find a replacement act. Or in the case of, say, Montreal, we went there and they got 10 years after we're replacing Deep Purple. And all the fans were like furious, and they kind of like, it was great. We were at the back having played, and there was this big... It was like a sports arena, so there's a big tunnel going down into the arena, right? And there's a big chain mail gate, and all these fans stormed it and just pushed the gate over. It was like the zombies and stuff, They were like rushing down and getting in for nothing, The other great thing was the first night where it was like we were in Virginia, I think, playing at a uni, and there was a sort of reasonable sized PA. We had a few W bins and things, And I was saying, because we were on first all the time. So we play, and everyone's going, I love this Daddy Cool, and they're all throwing frisbees around it. If they loved you, they loved you. If they didn't, you knew about it. But fortunately, they loved us, so they were having a great time. And then it was announced that, Ian Gillan's fallen sick and he can't sing. And also, the PA blew up during Fleetwood Mac's thing. Something went wrong with it. So the next thing is the fans are going, fuck this. I've told this story before. But they, we have penny bungers.
Yeah.
They have cherry bombs, right? The round ones. Cherry bombs look like bombs. And these guys run down the aisle with a whole lot of cherry bombs and throw them into the PA, which had blown up anyway. It went bang! And I'm going, this is incredible. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And luckily it wasn't happening to me, But I've got a sense of the enthusiasm of American audiences, love you or hate you. It was like, if they loved you, they really loved you, If they didn't like you, you get your PA blown up.
Crikey.
Yeah.
It's a different world. I mean, in that period of time, if you just think about from 1971 to 1983, what a remarkable change, in technology, in that 10-year period.
Well, the technology, it's good you brought that up because technology always changes everything. Electric guitars, right? Wow. Synthesizers. Suddenly black guys are coming up with, Bernie in Funkadelic invents keyboard bass, with this new gadget. Guys in the ghetto find a sampler. Suddenly they're making hip-hop music. It's like all the creative people get the new stuff and they go do things that people never thought was possible, and it just changes everything, and it's still like that. Here I am in lockdown. I'm going, I better cut some demos. I haven't used music program for quite a while because I've been enjoying doing stuff with live people, I go, oh, well, so I get into GarageBand comes free with your Mac. So I go, oh, yeah, that's right. What do you do again? And navigating myself all around that. Now I'm making pretty good demos, It's like going, oh, cool, I can do it.
That's it. So in 1971, you became a father. Now, I would say that all of your successes came after the birth of your son, but I think it's fair to say that the business certainly picked up. Do you think becoming a father changed you as a musician?
Only in the way that I felt more of a need to provide, and I still do that because I've got married a second time, had more kids quite a long time later. But yeah, he was. We didn't think we were going to be successful as we were. And I've got a photograph of someone I found recently when we were rooting through stuff for this 50th anniversary thing, and it's a picture of Daddy Cool at their very first Sydney gig, right, which was the 6th of June 1971, supporting the Kinks, right? So we had a lot of people there, and a lot of them were there to see us because we were going through the roof. And, of course, but I had a baby coming on the way. The baby was coming on the way pretty much when we formed the group in the October, right? We were just about, I just found out, we were going to have a baby, me and Pat. Then we kind of took over Melbourne. The day he was born, the 6th of June, I'm on stage with the Kinks thinking, gee, I hope I get back in time for the birth. But in my defence, they didn't let you in the room anyway back then. Now it's almost compulsory. But, back then it was like, stay out, we'll take care of this. So I get back and we've got a new kid. And that was pretty cool. And but I was just ploughing ahead. It was like, now I'm going to America. Now I'm going to and come back and the baby's grown a couple of, this big now. I'm going on the road. Now the baby's this big. So I was pretty busy. While all of the time that Daniel was growing up, he lived with a dad who was, immersed in what he was doing, and that included, me falling apart at the seams sometimes because I was, that's what it was doing to me. But then also when Mondo Rock started happening, he was able to really enjoy the way Mondo Rock kind of developed because he was old enough by then to come on the road and, see how it worked. And, I think he had a good time doing that. So it balanced out in the end,
Yeah. And the final question is, how do you feel about the business side of the music business? From the outside looking in, you've been very successful at it. Do you enjoy the business side of it? And do you think you're good at it? How can a young musician hoping to be the next Ross Wilson make sure they do a good job at the business side of things while they're trying to write the next hit single?
Well, the business side of things comes back to this thing I said originally about you got to do it with other people. It's very difficult to do it as one guy. You just need a manager, you need an agent, you need a record company, you need a publisher. And I did do a stint where I was my own publisher, and I learned a lot by doing that, And that's when I had Greg McCain from Skyhooks was signed to me in Wayne Bird, as we talked about before. But it's quite intensive, particularly in the modern age where you've got algorithms, you've got everything streamed and that. It was a bit different than you said, a product come out and they'd have to report to you. It was easier, let's put it that way. Now, as far as being a business person, you have to know who to work with and who not to work with. So there are people I know who, to this day, are so protective of what they do, they don't get anywhere, right? As I put it, they would rather have 100% of nothing than 80% of something, and 80% is about what you can get if you do the right kind of deals. Okay, publisher, you get 20%. You get agent, you get 10% for doing that, managing, you get this amount of percent, and then I'll get the rest, out of which I've got to pay musicians and all of that. But it's a matter of, because you can't do it all. It's so hard to do it all yourself, So having a good publishing deal is a great thing. Your music streamed out there now, of course, Eagle Rock, the biggest song I've ever had, as far as longevity goes, that's up to 40 million streams on Spotify. And that's basically just Australia.
Yeah.
There's some overseas, but not that many, And so I'm going, thank the Lord, So, publishers, everything's done with computerised now. It's a lot easier, but it's quite detailed, and you can go and look at page after page of this was streamed here and that was streamed here and blah, 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 I don't want to have to do that if I can possibly help it, and I'm happy to pay people to do it, and get what I'm due, And, I wouldn't be, lockdown's been hard, but I've been able to survive because I've got, several different income streams because I do deals with people, and I'm happy to do it. And I've realised a long time ago that, you've got to, I used to be a bit of a control freak, through the 70s and then in the 80s. And then I gradually got smarter and smarter, and I started to realise that you've got to let go. You've got to keep your eye on things. You've got to stop people doing bad things or stupid things, but you have to be inclusive, bring them in and then let them go, and bring them in and let them go. That's, if you could do that, you're going to be much better off.
Yeah, maybe you should give the Carlton Football Club a few tips, mate.
Well, I don't care about them. I'm back with the Saints.
Well, I appreciate your time, Ross, and it's been a long time coming, this podcast.
Yeah, well,
I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing you in the near future. All right,
okay,
thanks, Ross.
See ya.
When voodoo strikes, it'll tear apart your head. When voodoo strikes, you wish that you was dead. When voodoo strikes.